It's really hard to look at Julio Rodriguez and find any flaws. The Seattle Mariners center fielder is one of the best players in baseball at just the age of 22 years old. Born just a few days before the year of 2001, which makes me feel really old by the way, Julio Rodriguez won Rookie of the Year for the 2020 season, the year the Mariners finally broke the playoff drought. The last time the Mariners had been to the playoffs, Julio was less than a year old. And what did this kid do? He came in and hit 284, 345, 509 with a 147 OPS plus with 28 home runs and 25 stolen bases. Julio put up a 6.2 B WAR as well as took over the world after the home run derby in Los Angeles last year, being beat by only one of the better players in baseball, Juan Soto. The question is, what can Julio Rodriguez do to be better? What is the next step for the Seattle Mariners superstar that took over the headlines in baseball throughout the season, a 21-year-old just wrecking the major leagues? Well, this question was asked to Justin Hollander, the Mariners GM, and here's what he had to say about seeing what Julio could do in 2023.
I'm afraid to put a limit on it. I know Julio doesn't like that. I think what we saw last year was the beginnings of a special career. You don't do that unless you're going to be special for a long time, we hope. I think it speaks to Jerry's point earlier. The team that we had, and Julio's a great example of this, on April 1st was not the same team we had on August 1st or September 1st. And the improvements that we saw out of young players, the additions we made in season, Julio was so much different on July 1st and August 1st and September 1st than he was on April 1st when we were in Minnesota taking his first at-bat. And I saw it the other day on TV, I was watching highlights with my son, Julio's first hit, and how excited he was to hit that double. I think it was in the ninth inning in Minnesota and sort of get off the schneid and break the seal, and we ended up coming back and winning that game. And the confidence that you see from him now day to day, he knows he's one of the best players in the game, and I would just assume the trajectory continues for him as one of the best players in the game.
Honestly, Justin's right. You can't put a limit on anything Julio could do. He is that good of a player. But just for the fun of it, let's take a look at what Julio lacked a little bit in 2022 and see if that's something that he can take advantage of in 2023 and become even better than he already is. First and foremost, we all know how slow of a start that Julio got off to. Of course, we all know a lot of that wasn't his fault. With the umpires, this was some really, really bad strike calls on him. I mean, like, the hell is this? And you can see that here with Julio playing in 20 games between March and April, hitting .205. He struck out 30 times in 81 plate appearances, no home runs, and only 7 walks. Julio was in a rough spot to begin the season, but that all changed once May started to roll around. In the month of May, in 110 at-bats, Julio then only struck out 29 times. He hit .309, hit 6 home runs with 12 runs scored and 17 RBI, and from there, Julio was a superstar. He finished the second half of the season hitting .303, and I think somewhere between 280 and 300 is where we could likely see Julio in 2023. And Julio was no different player at home than he was away, hitting .283 away and .285 at T-Mobile Park. As Julio adjusts more to major league pitching, it's easy to see that he's probably going to cut down that strikeout rate down from the 26% that it was last year, down a little bit further. He might walk a little bit more, pitchers might pitch around him a little bit, but overall I think that Julio, in terms of his swing path, he doesn't need to change a thing. Especially with the umpires probably not giving him as many BS strike calls as we saw last year, Julio has a good chance to get that K percentage even lower than 25, hopefully even closer to 20% as a whole. And based on his baseball savant page, you can see that yeah, that was kind of something that was going on with Julio. His whiff percentage, K percentage, chase rate, and walk percentage were the only things in the blue for him on the baseball savant page. Everything else was off the charts. But these 4 stats right here are really indicative of Julio's start to the season. And I mean, guys like Julio are just naturally going to have a lot of swing and miss in their game, but they're also going to do damage when they hit the ball. Everything else on Julio's baseball savant page is something you can only dream of. Look at how hard Julio hits the ball, and look at how great he's been defensively as well. Julio did steal 25 bases in 2022, and that might change in 2023. While I would love to see Julio swipe like 40 bags next year, if the end of last year is any indication, there's a good chance that Julio won't be running as much. In the first half of 2022, Julio stole 21 bags compared to only 4 in the second half. Now, obviously, Julio had a lot less plate appearances in the second half, but also I would assume that a lot of this is because the Mariners didn't want him getting hurt. They knew how important he was to this playoff run for the team, and so they probably held him up. They didn't give him the green light on first base as much as they were in the first half because they knew they were fighting for a playoff spot. But with that being said, however, the 2023 rule changes with pickoff moves and pitch clocks, so on and so forth, are going to make it so much easier for players to steal bases that maybe we do see Julio snag at least 25 bases, if not more. Overall, there's no way we can expect Julio to regress. Julio Rodriguez is the star of the Seattle Mariners baseball team and obviously one of the stars in baseball already. With the All-Star game in Seattle in 2023, I fully expect him to be there. But one guy that I really hope we see there is Jarred Kelenic. But is that going to happen? Well, we talked about that in a video on the screen right now. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.